I have bodied others and been bodied in turn. Put people into the vortex, and been thrown into the vortex myself. Given people the wheel of misfortune. And been run over by it myself. I've seen it all, done some of it, and got hit by most of it, and I'm here to tell you about what I saw in the DNF beta, which has been, for better or worse, a somewhat nostalgic experience. You know, before the beta hit, there was some concern that even though 18's logo is on the game, they weren't going to be heavily involved in development. Now that we're 3 days into the beta...
Oh my God! Jesus Christ! I love you, God! Damn! I'm true! Jesus Christ! Checkmate! I'm righteousness! Jesus Christ!
I think it's safe to say they're very involved in the game. I could go on and on about every little thing that appears in DNF Duel that's also appeared in their other fighting games, but that's a big gauche. I don't want to be reductionist or make constant comparisons to other games in 18's past, although I will make a few. The fighting game genre is generally iterative, and games that share mechanics aren't necessarily pinching concepts from one another. Just know that while we may not have the exact same animations everyone knows and loves, appreciates, recognize that the same animations everyone will recognize from 18's work, the game carries one important trait that most of 18's work carries. Give characters at least one thing that's really good for free. There are some things that are obviously good on paper and others that are much better in practice than they seem. Whether that was planned or not, it's hard to say. I mean, yeah, as of this recording, Grappler has an infinite, but don't you think he needs it? I think he needs it. Now, as to who did what, I can't say. I was under the assumption that 18 and ASW are cooperating on this game, so I'll go with that until I hear otherwise. It's clear that ASW has a hand in how the game looks because it seems pretty close to the rest of the company's output in the last 2 generations. But whatever they're doing seems to run pretty smoothly, even on my catastrophically close to death PS4 Pro. So far, I like the visuals, the music, and the characters that have appeared in this beta. They all feel distinct from one another, and the characters' unique normals don't overlap very often in terms of feel, which is important for a game where most characters have some sort of weapon. Even the characters with actual guns don't shoot them the same way, which is great by my standards. As I said before, every character has at least one good thing to lean on, if not more. Inquisitor, Kunoichi, and Crusader are screen-filling menaces. Vanguard is predictably good at keeping people away. Berserker is surprisingly good at keeping people away. Hitman and Ranger approach zoning in 2 different ways. And Striker, Grappler, and Dragon Knight have some really frustrating offensive approaches. But that's just broad strokes. They've all got some solid details to their combo structure. For example, I played Grappler quite a bit, and his ability to get more out of his specials by charging them via holding the buttons down really makes him a menace. Especially when you start chaining his flying kicks, which really seems like a nightmare of an infinite. Or take Inquisitor's wheel, which isn't actually all that scary on block because she's too slow to really mix you up on a straightforward approach to get an unblockable, even with all the effects on the wheel obscuring your vision. But her forward skill can cross up. She has a firebomb that can wear you down in the corner, and she can just grab you if you counterattack from block stun, so it turns into a long 5 seconds of waiting. The MP meter is really interesting to me. The game has a 4-button layout, 2 attack buttons, a skill button, which acts like a heavy button in a lot of ways, and an MP skill button, which is basically a button for special moves. You can play the game with a combination of these buttons, including hitting chain combos, although there is no universal series of moves for everyone to use, it's kind of character specific. The MP meter is tied to MP skills. You use a move and it consumes a set amount of this meter, which starts at 100 and increases as you take damage, up to about 200. It's like a magic meter, it can be exhausted, but it actually comes back just by standing around. It's not even tied to whether or not you're moving towards the enemy. My first impression was that your special moves were mapped to your MP skill button, and consequently, that you could run out of MP and end up without your special moves as a penalty. After all, if you do a traditional motion input and press that same button, you can use the same move for less MP. So I assumed it was a simplification of the concept like other games with a button for special moves. But now, after playing the game, I think the command moves tied to the skill buttons are actually the special moves, and the MP skills are basically EX moves, but EX as in extra moves that are sometimes unique, and not just stronger versions of the regular special moves. Everyone in this beta has at least one skill mapped to each straightforward direction, which would be really unusual for a regular control scheme, and some of them are pretty damn good on their own. Plus, most of your damage comes from fitting in more MP moves rather than trying to burn a super. From a certain point of view, it's almost a 2-button fighting game with 2 more buttons for special moves, which is funny to me. If I'm right, it's a very interesting way to handle EX moves, and if I'm wrong, then I just sound like a crazy person, and that's nothing new to me, so either way, I'm good. Having said that, I think that's also why Conversion, the move that lets you trade white life for MP, works the way it does. And here comes more of those comparisons I was talking about. So in this game, there's white life damage, which longtime listeners know that I love, and red life damage. White life damage is inflicted with normal moves and skill moves, and it can be recovered over time. Red life damage is inflicted by MP skill moves and does not recover over time. We've had a specific cancelling mechanic that ate life before in 18's Tatsunoko vs Capcom called Baroque, which gave you a free cancel for anything other than supers or grabs at the cost of your life, and a damage buff that was proportional to the amount of red life that you gave up. Concentration is similar, but it doesn't give you the damage boost. However, since the easiest way to add damage to a combo is to add MP skills, the MP boost is essentially the same thing. In practice, even free cancelling it to keep yourself safe could potentially give you something in return, whereas if you didn't hit a fat combo in Baroque or get anything off the cancel, you essentially gave up a good chunk of red life and a chance to close out the match for nothing. The only thing that confuses me is the awakening skill. At first glance, I thought it was a combat mechanic, and I get the feeling it is that, but it's very finicky right now. From how I understand it, and feel free to correct me here if I'm wrong, but I think you can only do it once per round when your health hits a certain point, and only when your MP is maxed out. So it's not for free, it has some sort of criteria, and most of these awakening skills seem to combo very easily. But they also scale quite hard, seemingly harder than the MP skills, at least aside from ones like the Inquisitor's Noble Rage special. So they're not very easy to come back with. Not entirely sure where awakening skills fit into the game plan aside from giving you a really flashy super with a hard knockdown that lets you go in for a mix-up. Which is enough, I suppose, that's fine, it's just unorthodox, let's leave it at that. The matchmaking was not good enough this time around. No connection indicators, no ways to invite people to rooms directly. The only saving grace was that players could search for rooms with certain criteria that could weed out the majority of other rooms, and even that fell apart when scores of people started doing the same thing. Couple that with the lack of training mode, or even local play, or how playing the CPU was only an option when the servers were down and your characters were chosen for you, and it all boils down to a frustrating first 2 days. I think I understand why it was set up this way. It's a beta. Not every beta is feature rich. The game's not coming out until summer 2022, that's months away. This is probably also their way of preventing people from cracking the game open on day 1 or 2. The only way people could consistently practice was by either going into real matches or playing against people who are willing to be beaten up. It reminds me of how, back in the day, people had to either collaborate to get info on a game day 1, or wait until other people figured out something cool, but not in a good way. It did slow some people down, but it didn't really stop the lab monsters from finding the really nasty stuff. I do know that it turned some people off the beta altogether, and while I prefer figuring out stuff in matches, even I would have liked to have a training mode handy. But it is what it is, and it's very bare bones, so there's not much else to say about the beta except that I'm really happy that the game has lobbies. See, ASW, people can cope with lobbies. Long-term engagement with ranked match isn't that big of a deal, so maybe you can start using real nobbies again, I don't know. I didn't have the highest hopes for DNF Duel. Actually, it's the end of the video. Is it DNF Duel or Dungeon Fighters Duel? I'll look it up later. But it's shaping up very nicely, and I'm now looking forward to it. I think all it really needs is to take out the infinites, tweak the damage and hit stun scaling a bit, and keep that stuff consistent across the final cast, and it should be good. The beta was a mixed bag, but as long as the devs working on the game take the feedback to heart, I think the final result will be great.